Hi, Rob. Welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on.
Hey, James. Yep. Thank you very much for having me on.
Yeah, so excited for this conversation because I know you've built a thriving business doing, some pretty successful stuff when it comes to outsourcing development teams. What do most people misunderstand about building great products through outsourcing?
It's a very good question. And I think we're still kind of perfecting it. We're nowhere near the best people at it by any means. But I think what we see as a absolute prime thing to have with our clients is good communication. Communicating between people who want to build something, so have an idea for an application, whether that's web or mobile, and then getting that into the heads of our designers and developers. That communication piece is really, really difficult because you know people who outsource it could be near shore, far away as well. Getting that right is really hard with people who speak a different language, have a different culture, and just approach things in different ways. So yeah, we are heavy on like making sure the communication is as good as possible.
Yeah, and when it comes to communication, obviously I don't know whether you use Slack or Teams or whatever for just that the team communication, but communicating ideas, like how does that what are what's some advice you've got around that?
So we kind of to take a long time at the beginning of every project to really we go through what we call our definition phase, which is other people call it discovery, but really spending a good amount of workshops with the customer talking about not only the product they want to build, but the problem they're trying to solve, the solution that they're thinking about for that problem, their users. There's a whole piece that goes with thinking about what that product looks like based on all these other inputs. And communication is not just the talking, but it's also the visual piece. So making sure that we are diagrammatically looking at what they're talking about. That's not only building wireframes and then designs of the app, but also thinking about user flows and how people are going to use the app. And that is really good as a basis for communication with the client. So saying, okay, this is what we heard last time we spoke, and this is our interpretation of what you said, and playing that back to them and saying, is that right? Did we get that right, slightly right or wrong? And if we got it wrong, how did we get it wrong?
Yeah, it makes sense. Makes sense. Like, yeah, for sure. You definitely, it's about keeping them on the same page. Make sure you're relaying everything visually, and it's all a very collaborative planning of the project before things are being built and that sort of thing.
It's all too easy for people in my shoes to go, yeah, I got the idea, go away and build it, and build something which is not anything to do with what the kind of client wanted you to build in the first place. The communication piece is also like building up trust with the client because they can see that you're listening and then producing whatever they're saying. That is really helpful for the building up of trust, and that then helps with the longer term relationship with clients and keeping them on board and building not only the first version but the second, third, fourth, and fifth version of whatever you want to do.
Yeah, yeah. And you've got quite a diverse background. So, you've gone from private equity to product development and now leading a pretty big 40 plus person remote dev team from out in the Philippines. It's quite a shift and a journey. What was the moment you sort of knew that you wanted to go out and build this and do your own thing here?
I think the real answer is that none of it was planned. I think I left university, didn't really know what I wanted to do, but a lot of my cohort were going into things like accountancy, management consultancy, law, or finance. So I kind of was decent at maths, so went in that area of work. And over the course of my 12 years in it, got a lot of skills from it, and got a lot of you know contacts and knowledge and understanding about how to do things, but didn't really like enjoy it day to day, and so wanted to do something different. And I felt the entrepreneurship, or maybe the VC world was quite interesting. You're coming up with new ideas and trying to put those into action. Um, and so yeah, got into helped start a business in the electric vehicle world. That was my first kind of foray into product management. I didn't know what I didn't. It wasn't called that at the time, or as in I didn't know what I was doing really. But like managing a remote team and making sure that we were building the product that we wanted to have. And I made a load of mistakes, like all the possible ones you could do. poor communication, not checking on things, not checking up that they were doing what we were saying they're doing, all sorts. So with that experience behind me, I thought, I hadn't been able to find any business which really consulted and really helped non-technical, both founders but also innovators within businesses. It doesn't have to be a startup necessarily. Helping those people deliver their idea for their product. There wasn't. It's hard to find. And so having that extra bit of consultancy at the front, really thinking about what a non-technical person wants to understand, wants to do, wants to hear from you as an outsourced person, like that seemed to me and my business partner, who I was an old friend, an interesting space to start up with. So we started in the beginning of the pandemic, and then 5 years later, we've got 50 people in our team, which is a bit mad, to be honest.
Yeah. It sounds like quite the journey. And I guess like you started during the pandemic, which is a pretty chaotic, crazy time to start a business. Remote wise, that's it. It's kind of helped that remote, become normal, become much more normal. How people work. But yeah, how did that all kind of start and take shape?
Well, my business partner and I, as I said, he's an old friend, and we were old colleagues in finance many years ago. He'd left and built a tech business in restaurant tech, so a company called City Munch. I'd worked in electric vehicles. Both of us at the beginning of the pandemic found it very tough. Hit restaurants obviously stopped working, and so his business took a real hit. And we started chatting about the problems we'd had before in tech build, and it all came down to that. Dealing with a remote team when you're non-technical is very, very hard. And so we thought, and he had very luckily met two or three developers in the Philippines, and he said, well, why don't we try and just do one project with these guys and see if we can find something to help someone else build. And it just kind of went from there, really. And the remote first piece, so all of our team work from home. It's been really helpful in many ways that it became the norm, as you say. Our customers didn't mind the fact that we're all, on the screen rather than real life. We could get through many more meetings than you would do if you were, I remember working in the city and having to travel across London to go for a meeting for half an hour and then traveling across another, going back for another meeting. You get 2 or 3 meetings done in a day, whereas I'm doing 10, 15, 20 meetings. I mean, it's not that fun sometimes, but you can get through a lot more, I think, if you, as we've all experienced over the past 5 years. So I think that was beneficial to us, and we rode that wave a little bit, and we've kept going in that vein. Now different things are hitting our business with AI and other aspects. So we're just trying to ride the waves that are hitting us from different sides.
Yeah. With AI now, with development, that's very, there's a lot going on there. But firstly, so I'll come on to that. But firstly, coming back to your sort of finance background, what lessons did you take from that experience and then coming into the starting your own business?
So yeah, so that's a great question, and I think it comes down to like customer service. When we were working I did corporate finance and then private equity. The customers were paramount, and we would bend over backwards to do stuff for them. We'd go the extra mile. We would do free stuff to begin with, because we knew that if we landed them, then that was a big long tail of work with that person, and the relationship was massive. The relationship was key with that. So we brought that into Old Street. We spend a lot of time courting our customers. We make sure that we do the best job we possibly can do. We call it a white glove approach. We don't always get it right, and things go wrong sometimes, but that's what we aim to do, and it means that your customers are sticky. And some of our customers we've had for 4 years. So you know in the tech world, things do churn a lot, and it's easy to jump from one outsourced agency to another, and we're pretty good at keeping our customers, which is partly down to that approach, I think.
Yeah, nice. And then moving into, so you moved into the EV space, which was your first sort of path into product development, and you said, you know, you basically made every mistake under the sun. What's one big thing that, you know, gave you a huge lesson, a huge learning from a mistake that you made?
I think not like having a really good plan in place to begin with. You know, not only was that the design of the product, but also like how it's going to really work, and we kind of built it as we went and kind of said, oh yeah, that feature would be good. Oh, you know, we can do that, or this is how, and that, you know, not having a reasonably, you know, a pretty good plan in place at the start was, I think, a real error, because it meant that you didn't really know then how long it was going to take, how much it's going to cost, and that then, you know, you're already at a loggerheads with the developer because they're, you know, churning through hours and building up cost, and you're like, oh, hang on a sec, we don't have the plan in place to really set that out. So yeah, that was definitely one area which I learned quite heavily, to make sure there's a good plan in place at the start.
Yeah, absolutely. It's there's nothing like throwing yourself in with both feet and then just learning as you go along, taking action. It's the only real way when there's just not these playbooks available. You know, it's
And this is what I feel for founders these days as well, is that there's so much advice out there from all different angles. You know, sometimes it's like, okay, you've got to fake it till you make it. Another one's like, you've got to be completely honest. Or other ones are, you know, you've got to get your hands dirty and learn all this stuff yourself. And other ones are like, no, you should use advice from everyone else. So there's a lot of conflicting advice out there. So, you know, doing it, getting your hands dirty and understanding it from your own perspective is really helpful, but it's not always easy.
yeah, and it is, and like the advice that's out there, you know, it's not experiential until you literally, you know, take action and learn things yourself, and it never goes the way that, you know, you think when you theorize on stuff. It's always different in practice.
Yeah, and having those conversations with founders is interesting, because they'll have read about that stuff, but unless they've actually experienced it, they won't realize quite how much their idea is going to shift and change and pivot as they kind of work with it, and as they sit with it, and as they get user feedback and all these things. So yeah, it is interesting to see how people evolve themselves as founders as they go through the process.
Mm, absolutely, absolutely, and there's always interesting stories and insights to glean from having those conversations for sure.
Yeah, and having, yeah, getting advice from people is good. It's hard to know sometimes which advice to take and which advice to ignore, but
Mm,
that comes with experience again. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah, so you built you said over 50 team members now, outsourced, super fast growth, that, you know, to have that big team that's totally remote. It's, you know, in the Philippines predominantly. What have been some big wins, some big challenges when it comes to that, the hiring, the culture, the quality control of everything, when you know you've got such a big team that's overseas?
yeah, we I think we're very lucky that we met a really good person up front. So the lead tech out there is Dennis, and he's Filipino, therefore he kind of the father figure out there, I guess, of the team. But also he's lived and worked in different countries, and having that experience makes you understand culturally a little bit easier how to mix and work with other nationalities. So that's been very helpful in terms of me and my business partners understanding of their culture. So he was able to kind of express some of those things. Um, I've also spent time there, and that's been really. I mean, it's not a bad place to have to go, the Philippines, for work trips. But understanding them in their own context, and understanding how they approach things, you know, the fact that they were owned by the Spanish and then the Americans, and how that's like had an effect on their culture, that's been
Mm,
helpful for me to understand. Um, we've also spent a lot of time building up relationships with the universities, and that's been a big win. We now get a look at some of the best candidates coming out of the top universities in the Philippines, because we have an internship program. We run a hackathon out there. We have prizes for innovation as well within the universities, and that's been, for us, has been a wonderful kind of fertile ground for finding some really good candidates.
mm. Yeah, really nice. So it's not, you're not just the case of, you know, being remote, dealing everything with remotely. You actually are going over there and immersing yourself to understand the culture and how things really work, building relationships with universities to get the best sort of talent that comes out. So yeah, interesting.
Yeah, the cultural piece. I enjoy it, right? I spent time in different countries, and that is, part of my makeup is to enjoy learning about new cultures. So that's been, a good thing, but also I've enjoyed it. The universities, it kind of comes a little bit from my experience of coming out of university and having very little in terms of career planning and very little in terms of like the only internships were with the big, accountancy firms or law firms and stuff. I was like, well, actually, maybe as a small business, we can do that. We can put ourselves in that place because all these students are leaving university, especially if they've done a computer science degree. They want to work with, what do they want to work with? They want to work with interesting tech businesses in the Western world, and so we give them that opportunity. So it's quite a nice, it's a nice blend of both.
Nice. I've never been to the Philippines, so you say it's a great place to go and
It's
travel and.
yeah, stunning place. Like outside of Manila, it's beautiful islands, loads of places to explore. Like it's less touristy than the places like Bali and Vietnam and things like that. So yeah,
Mm,
it certainly should be on people's list of places to visit. It's unbelievably beautiful.
yeah, interesting. Yeah, interesting. Because I've done Thailand, but yeah, I haven't. Yeah, amazing. Sounds
It's
cool.
not, yeah, it doesn't. It's not on UK people's list. I
Mm,
found, although it is starting to be talked about a bit more here.
mm.
Yeah, I'd recommend it.
You mentioned that so Old.St Labs is now leaning more into AI, and obviously, that's obviously the big advancement in technology right now, and every business is asking, how do I best incorporate AI into my company? Where are you seeing the biggest opportunities for AI in the software development space right now?
So yeah, I guess AI is hitting us in two sides. So one is our customers coming to us and say we want to develop a product and incorporate AI into that. And that's straightforward. That's just using a tool like any other tool with an API link and being able to incorporate that within the product that the customers want. And we've done that a few times, and it's the makes process improvement, automation of things. There's some kind of use cases which are really really good, and our customers are kind of benefiting from that. On the software development side, there's a lot of products coming out which are kind of co-pilots for developers, allowing them to quickly develop or become much more efficient at developing. Um, I think when it first came out, we got a bit scared that it was going to like, okay, this will wipe us out completely. I think more recently, my fear has diminished because it's like these things are good, but they're not perfect, and the road to perfection. I don't think we see that. I don't so we see we. I don't think we see the AI being able to produce an entire app on its own without needing any human in the loop. I think that human in the loop is still needed, and that we want to be that human in the loop, basically. And so yeah, we got all the team to be using some of the co-pilots, Cursor, for example, we use. And then there's some other products out there which, for a founder who is non-technical, are actually very good to get just on their idea off the ground.
Mm,
So a little bit before I spoke about how we kind of set up the business to help non-technical founders and innovators produce technical products. What we're seeing now is they can use these products to get themselves a prototype or at least a first working version, which is great because they can then understand the process a bit more. They can ideate. They can say, well, actually, this feature I don't want, and this feature I do want, and then they can bring that to us, and we can turn it into a proper, scalable, robust, safe, secure product. Um,
yeah.
and so that's what we're seeing at the moment. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. That's really interesting. Yeah, like the sort of the prototype MVP. Well, not quite MVP, but just very initial prototype stages.
I think
Getting
there's
that
some things
fast
could be an
development.
MVP depending on the use case. If it's simple and doesn't need too much of a back end, you can produce something pretty good with it.
Mm,
I'm no expert though. I should say that I'm not an expert in these things. So there are people out there who will be able to kind of direct stuff founders to really produce something pretty incredible. I think we see ourselves as using these tools to help them once they've understood it and once they've prototyped a little bit.
mm, yeah. And yeah, it is exactly how you said. It's that human in the loop is needed. It's because you've got to know what good looks like at the end of the day. As a developer, it's the same with me and marketing and sales. I've got to. It enables me to ideate and create things super super fast and brainstorm and get all this creative stuff going, but you still need to know what the good outputs are, and it can only come from that that overseeing with somebody with expertise.
Yeah, I mean, I speak to a lot of kind of CTOs kind of level. I know a number of fractional CTOs, and they're all have a similar mindset, which is it's very good at doing short chunks. When you give it a problem and you give it the kind of this is the kind of answer I want, whereas actually architecting an entire thing, coming up with the whole schema of things, that is where it doesn't won't be able to do that yet, and may not ever be able to do that. I'm going to caveat that with it's moving so fast, the world. Who knows where
Mm,
it goes to? We're seeing new stuff come out all the time. So, for us, it's staying on top, not necessarily the bleeding edge of where it is, but certainly like riding the wave of this kind of AI revolution, and making sure that we, are becoming as efficient as we possibly can with it.
mm. Yeah, for sure. And it's always a funny one, that's trying to stay on top at the bleeding edge, because man, you can sometimes get sucked into thinking,
Yeah,
"Wow, am I
rabbit
am I
holes.
missing out here? Like, do I need to? What direction do I take?" It gets a bit crazy with that, the fear of falling behind or something. But yeah, you just got to take a step back and think, "No, I'm just falling into that." That it's the visionary entrepreneur, I guess, as well, which there's just so many opportunities that you could jump on, but like you say, you have to navigate that and know what to choose, which direction, which path to take.
Yeah, I think it is affecting a lot of industries as well, and I think that will be difficult for some people because if they don't embrace it, that's going to be difficult for their jobs. But I do think there's a lot of opportunities which we don't even know about yet, right? A little bit like when the iPhone came out, no one knew that the App Store was down the road, and we were going to have this incredible kind of uh, yeah, incredible economy based on apps, which wasn't really even in existence like 2, 3, 4 years before. So I think that might come through AI. We're just not quite sure what it looks like just yet.
Yeah, so we've talked about growth on the team side, but on the client side, how do you grow your company through client acquisition? What has worked well for you, and what sort of strategies and that sort of thing?
I would say no one thing has been the golden ticket. Nothing has really shone out for us as being okay. If we put all our eggs in this basket, we're always going to get customers. Um, like any business, we started with kind of network and referrals within the network, and that has remained strong throughout. Especially with the concept of doing the white glove approach to our customers, they've often introduced us to more customers, which is great, but it's not predictable, and it's kind of it only goes so far. So we do a bunch of other things. So we do some email marketing, try to be as specific as possible about it and be quite targeted rather than spray and pray, and that has proven to be reasonable but not phenomenal. We have done some cold calling in the past. We've employed someone to do that. It's not bad, but also not fantastic. It's a bit like looking for a needle in a haystack. We've done some LinkedIn stuff. That's been again trying to build profile both of myself and my business partner and the business. Not done too badly with that. There's a little bit of organic and a little bit of pay stuff in there. We do a lot of soft stuff. So I run a network of founders in London. It's called Tech Startups in the Pub. We meet monthly, and it's a nice networking thing for founders to do. I also help out. Last Friday, I was hosting a pitching event or pitching stage for Rare Founders, which is another big founder network in London. Yeah, and there's continually looking for other areas to put ourselves on. We're on a directory called Clutch. There's like an agency directory that we pay to be on, and there's a few others that we look at to see where's the best place to put our kind of marketing spend. Again, it's spinning plates and trying to keep all the plates spinning and making sure that we are visible to people looking for when they're thinking about building a tech product.
Mm. Yeah, it does sound. It sounds like you are spinning quite a few different plates in that area. what does your team look like when it comes to marketing and sales? Do you have like a content marketing team, that kind of thing?
No, it's if we do stuff, it'll be outsourced. We haven't really gone down the road of hiring anyone to do that just yet. It's been me and my business partner mainly,
Mm,
and with outsourcing some stuff to people. We did some content stuff outsourcing. It's tough to get our voice for an outsourced per person, and also we don't have the biggest budget to do that. So we ended up doing some ourselves, but then you're running the day, the day job, it gets in the way of doing that. So yeah, it's just trying to. I think one of the biggest lessons I've had through running the business is making sure you don't drop the ball on marketing and business development, because you can be, project stuff, client stuff, and then a project finishes, and then you haven't got anything else to do. So we're always at a mind to have something always ongoing, some way or some form in those areas.
yeah, no, absolutely, and that is key. You can't, your pipeline dries up, and you lose a client, or it just something happens, and you've got no sort of opportunities. It's not a good position to be in for sure. So,
No, especially when you've got a lot of people on your payroll. It's a
absolutely.
pretty scary place to be. So yeah, we've learned that lesson pretty hard.
Mm. Yeah, and when it comes to, so you're yeah, so I mean you're doing a lot of things, like you're spinning a lot of plates. What does your sort of day to day look like? Do you have consistency and that sort of built into your weeks and routines? How does that look?
It's fairly consistent. You know, Luckily the Philippines is 7 hours ahead, and so but we ask them to work a late day, so they do midday to 9 p.m. their time, and I do on with them from 8 a.m. normally, talking projects and process and people. So those get done in the morning, and we'll do client calls and make sure clients are updated with how things are going, and if any issues are arisen, then we jump on those. And then 2 p.m. comes around and the Philippines goes to bed, and that's time for me to you know do more kind of business development calls, write stuff, think about what we're doing next. We've got our 5th birthday coming up, so we're having a big party for that, so we're getting a lot of our clients together for that. Yeah, so it's mornings are projects and making sure things are working properly, and then afternoons generally are the BD marketing piece.
Mm, nice. Do you find yourself getting up earlier since you've kind of started this and you've got a team over in the Philippines? Does that
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm no Mark Wahlberg. I'm not getting up at 4:30 in the morning, but I 6:30 something like that. I like to do a bit of exercise in the morning if I can. Just to get the day going. But then, I'm getting messages rolling in quite early on as well. So
Mm,
I need to be a bit careful about not reading as soon as I get up all my Slack
yeah.
messages. I try and not do that until 8 a.m.
Mm,
But yeah, when things are smooth and there's nothing, the hairs aren't on fire because of some problem, then I have a
yeah.
pretty nice day.
Yeah, it's interesting because I went over to Tulum in Mexico for a few months at the back end of last year, and my team's over here in the UK and Europe, so they're obviously ahead. And I found myself waking up at like 5 o'clock in the morning just to check Slack to make sure that everything was cool. There was no fires to put out, and that lasted for a little while. I was getting up super early, just because of that.
Yeah, I think in my life I've been a night person. I mean, working in finance, you had to work till super late at night, and so now it seems like I'm shifting into being a morning person. You know, I think I'd rather work earlier. I think I work better in the morning when I get up rather than getting to 7 8 p.m. and still going. So
Mm,
I prefer it this way around.
yeah,
So when I go to the Philippines, obviously that switches around, and I'm over there for a month and trying to keep up with clients. And it's like you are working in a hotel till 10 p.m., 11 p.m. at night, and that's just not much fun.
yeah, absolutely. But it's definitely it's that getting up early, but having some sort of like morning routine ritual that empowers you, sets you up for the day is much better than getting up and checking messages and what's going on, having that
Your
fear
brain would go,
sort of
yeah,
thing.
exactly, because your brain goes
Yeah.
straight there, and you're like, oh, right, okay, so what's my to-do list? Right, I've got to do this, this,
Yeah.
this, as opposed to, taking some time out. I do some meditation as well, and there's just you enter the day in a much more positive frame of mind. I find anyway.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. How would you describe your leadership style today, and has it evolved, as your business has grown?
Um, that's a good question. I think I'm quite a friendly manager, and I kind of I try and be kind of collaborative as much as possible. I think that stems again from my finance career and being shouted at a lot, and told to work till 2 in the morning, told to come in at the weekend, and me just hating my existence. And so I've kind of been determined not to repeat that and not to bring that to my day job. Um, and in times of stress, not putting that onto the team, and trying to shield them for difficulties and other things, because I know that people will work better if they aren't feeling like they're under undue stress. And I think also just culturally, the Filipinos are a fantastic bunch, and so not adding to their stress from being far away is what I try and do. Um, and I think in terms of like changing, we were very hands on when we first started. We had to do stuff that I now no longer do. We didn't have QA testers to begin with, so now I do a lot of the. Oh, sorry, I used to do a lot of the QA testing of the products. I'm not a good QA tester, it turns out. So like stepping away from doing some of the hands-on stuff and some of the project stuff has been really helpful, and it means that you're making decisions, or you're advising people about how to run the project as opposed to running the project yourself. And so you're empowering them to make the decisions in the project and saying, yeah, that's right, or no, well, if it was me, I'd do it slightly differently, and advising them as they go through. And I prefer that as a management way of doing things, because I think there's a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with the shift in allowing other people to take control of their businesses. Whereas I mean, these are projects that we have any time 20, 30 projects going on. So I can't manage every single one. And in order to grow, I couldn't do that. So um, yeah, we've also found a bunch of very, very good project managers and business analysts in the Philippines. Um, and actually now we've just hired someone in South Africa to be a product manager. Um, and so having the people who I trust to take on things has been really helpful.
Yeah, really interesting. So, do you run kind of like an agile, sprint type of? Yeah,
Yeah, agile sprint. Yes.
yeah, yeah. Because there's a lot of projects that you could have on at any one time, and obviously the size of the team, and are they? Yeah, so they're kind of split up into projects, and there's like a pod of a team that works on each kind of project.
Yeah, depending on the size of the project, the smallest ones we have is one developer and a project manager and maybe a tester on board, and then the largest one, I think we've got 12 people working on a project. So yeah, it
Mm.
really depends on what we're building, what's required, and those can fluctuate as well. For a couple of sprints, it could be big, and then it could be that we're only focused on one aspect of it for the next sprint, and so on. So yeah,
Mm.
it's agile, and one of my jobs is the pulling together the puzzle pieces of all the projects and all the people, and making sure that everyone's time is filled, and we're not missing out things and we're not delayed on things. Yeah, that's the biggest. I don't want to say headache, but it's the biggest conundrum we have day to day. I think is matching the projects with the people.
Yeah, interesting. What's your vision for Old Street, over the next 12 months or 2, 3 years? And what big bets are you making?
Yeah, uh, good question. Um, I think it would be, well, I certainly we're trying to, as we spoke about earlier, be riding the wave of AI and seeing how much we can incorporate into our business so that we are as efficient as we possibly can be. We're delivering stuff for people, which is good quality, but also scalable and robust and safe, as I said before, but also, employing these tools as much as we can. I think there are lots of different avenues to go down for us. So we have done a bit of what we call team augmentation. So that's putting individuals into existing teams within corporates rather than taking on just a project. And that's, you know, in terms of revenue is a much more recurring, but is a slightly different business model. So we're kind of toying with the idea of pushing into that area. You know, we come across a lot of startups. You know, I'm speaking to at least 5 to 10 every month. And so there is an element of, you know, could we come up with some kind of investment fund on the side of our business that would be able to fund some of these really interesting and kind of exciting businesses. But ultimately, I think, you know, the more that we do the business, the more kind of we move up in scale, we move up in size of businesses we can help, and you know, we can grow in terms of the number of people, but also the number and size of projects we do.
Mm, yeah. Do you ever get to the point where you've got things that are maybe repeatable for companies, and then you look to productize? Is that ever a situation?
It's always a thought. You know, all the code we write it belongs to our clients. You know, so it's, you know, the IP belongs to them as long as they pay us. And so it would be a case of maybe talking to a client and talking to them about, okay, well, I think we could productize this. Why don't we work on this together to productize it? Which we're in conversation with a couple of our clients about doing that. I think I've always been a bit reticent about doing that because when we first started the business, when we were, you know, canvassing our network about what they thought about the idea and talking to lots of people, we spoke to one guy who'd run a business similar to this, and he'd put all his profits into developing a product, and that product hadn't worked, and it killed the other side of the business. So if it was easy to do and didn't kill the business, yeah, then I think we would think about a product. But you then have to create a marketing system around it, a sales things system around it. It would be a whole extra business. So yeah, it would need to be very compelling for us to go into that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. For founders that, might be thinking about building tech but lack that technical background, what advice would you give to them?
Um, I would say in the last 6 months it's changed, that advice. I think before I would have said, look, seek out some technical help. Go and you know, anyone you know who's got some technical ability, go and have a chat with them. So if you can find a technical co-founder, great. It's very hard to do that because, you know, most good tech people are well paid in, you know, one of the big tech businesses. But you know, try and build something using a no code or low code platform, something like Bubble, just to get you off the ground, and something that you can then test with users, or design it and test that design with users rather than actually having the product. Now though, with the likes of Replete, Cursor, Lovable, a non-technical person can get quite far with testing their idea and have something which is very minimal but really quite interesting to be able to take to a potential customer and say, hey, what do you think of this? And that interaction, that conversation you can have with a potential customer and get that feedback is gold for any founder. And if they can then iterate on that and then do it more, and get to a point when, you know, their skills are, you know, no longer able to kind of build anything further, then come and speak to someone like me and say, right, I've got this far. This is all the ideas I've had, and this is the feedback I've got, and everything else. What's the next step? How do I take this to be scalable? How do I take this to the next step? That's where we would come in. Uh, Again, you can talk to, you know, fractional CTOs. There's LinkedIn is there's plenty of people on LinkedIn who would be happy to have, you know, half an hour conversation with people about a product, and go from there. Really, I think you can get quite a long way, but then you need to understand what the technical requirements are to take it to, you know, being a full enterprise grade piece of product.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. That's some really good advice, and yeah, it has changed. It's changed massively, like you say. Even just in the past 6 months of being very exciting times, and there's a lot of opportunities. Yeah, I really appreciate you coming on the show, Rob. This conversation was great. You shared some really good insights. Where can people find out more about you online?
Well, it's been really good to be on, James. So thank you for having me. In terms of finding me, so yeah, Rob Woodhead on LinkedIn. You can find me on there, or our website is Old.Street. So www.old.st. That's us.
Awesome, awesome, and I'll put your links in the description of
Thank you
the
very much. I appreciate
video.
it.
Yeah, thanks so much. Really appreciate it. It was great having you on, and I'll be watching the growth of Old Street with great interest.
Great. Thank you, James. It's been nice to have a chat.
Yeah, thanks a lot.